Coverage you can count on. KOMU 8 News Today starts now.
Good morning and TGIF to you, Mid-Missouri. Today is Friday, March 31st, 2023. I'm Jordan Berger. Thanks so much for waking up with us. We're going to turn things over to Kesley, get a look at that weather. Storm mode 3 today, right?
Yes, storm mode 3. This is the highest storm mode that we've been in for a while, especially that severe storm mode index. So right now for the rest of the day today, we're going to be watching for these showers and storms that are likely going to develop across mid-Missouri later this afternoon, mainly watching for the potential for strong damaging winds, but also watching for that potential for some large hail and some spin-up tornadic potential across mid-Missouri. We'll get to that forecast here pretty soon. If you take a look right now at that current satellite and radar, some saw some light showers overnight. We're now starting to see some more cloud cover, and that'll continue throughout the rest of the morning as well. Current temperatures right now, it's a warm start to the morning, a humid start to the morning as well. Temperatures in the upper 50s and in the lower 60s. 58 in Columbia, 61 in Jefferson City. All of that full hour-by-hour track of this storm system coming up.
All right, Kesley, thank you. After a Manhattan grand jury voted to indict former President Donald Trump, the U.S. Secret Service is talking with New York authorities about transporting him to Manhattan to face those criminal charges. The indictment stems from payments made to porn star Stormy Daniels during the 2016 presidential campaign. Trump's lawyers released a statement saying Trump did, quote, not commit any crime, and they will vigorously fight this political prosecution in court. Since the announcement of the indictment, people across the nation, as well as international visitors, have been weighing in on the decision.
He is being raked over the coals for something ridiculous. So we now live in a banana republic, apparently.
The DA said he was going to get Trump.
I'm here because I'm thrilled. I'm celebrating the indictment of Donald J. Trump. Up to this point, he's been Teflon Don.
Former President Trump's expected to surrender to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office for arraignment next Tuesday. Following the indictment, the NYPD is ramping up security measures by asking officers of all ranks to wear uniforms on patrol today. Last night, officers were told to, quote, be prepared to deploy as necessary. Despite Trump finding himself in the hot seat, he has doubled down on his stance that he was not guilty of any wrongdoing by releasing a statement stating his innocence. Trump is the first former president to face criminal charges. The city of Nashville had released some of the 911 calls made during the school shooting at the Covenant School on Monday. You may remember the 28-year-old shooter killed 3 children and 3 adults. The calls came from 2 people inside the building during the shooting. One was made from a teaching assistant hiding with kids in an art room closet. The second call was from a man who was on the 2nd floor of the school. Now, we have decided not to include the audio from those calls in this broadcast because it is graphic.
What do we want? Gun control! When do we want it? Now!
Parents and students rallied at the Capitol in Nashville calling for stricter gun laws. The group met from across the Legislative Plaza and then marched to the Capitol.
The truth is, it doesn't matter what school it is. One school is all our schools. One child is all our children. One assault weapon can kill more people than should be allowed.
Their goal was to vocalize their concerns with lawmakers before they head into session. After that shooting, Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy spoke on gun violence at an event. He said, quote, it's not just legislation that solves these problems.
We will look, getting all the information, is there anything that we can do more? But I would say to a nation as a whole, that the problem that we are today, it's not just going to be a legislation. We've got to have a severe conversation here with this country.
After the recent incident, several Americans are calling on Congress to pass gun control legislation. The Kentucky legislature has voted to override Governor Andy Beshear's veto on a bill that includes a ban on gender-affirming care for transgender youth. According to the bill, if a health care provider administers care outside of specified exceptions, their license could be revoked. Prior to the vote, many protesters against the bill were escorted out by police. Those who support the bill believe children should not be making such radical choices about their bodies, while those who oppose it say it denies basic human rights. The bill is expected to go into effect in late June. Back here in mid-Missouri, you might have seen police cars yesterday on Columbia's south side after MU sent out an alert asking people to stay away from the area due to a person with a gun. That person is now in custody. The alert went out around 2, saying CPD was investigating a person with a gun near Nifong and Buttonwood. The investigation expanded toward Providence Road near MU Urgent Care in Providence Medical Park. Officers cleared that scene within an hour, and a new alert reported a suspect was in custody. Police say no one was hurt. The Missouri House is backing a bill requiring research on psychedelics to treat depression or PTSD. The bill would require the state to study psilocybin, also known as magic mushrooms, to treat depression, substance abuse, or end-of-life care. The suicide rate among veterans in Missouri is about 25% above the national average. The March of Dimes was at the Missouri Capitol yesterday to lobby for increased health care for mothers and babies. Organizers set up a booth outside the Senate where lawmakers could learn more about their mission. However, they spent most of the morning away from the booth, visiting lawmakers in their offices. The volunteers had documents showing the statistics of care for mothers and babies in Missouri. March of Dimes gave Missouri a D- in its annual report card.
Our premature birth report card, which Missouri is a D-, so lots of preterm birth here, and prematurity is really an indicator of maternal and infant health of a population, and so we know we have a lot of work to do.
A few things the March of Dimes is asking for include expanding postpartum Medicaid coverage, as well as eliminating taxes on diapers and reviewing Missouri's Family and Medical Leave Act. The Jefferson City NAACP and First United Methodist Church are partnering to offer residents a free ride to the polls next Tuesday. Voting is open between 6 a.m. and 7 p.m., and rides will be offered between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. The NAACP says the rides are nonpartisan and non-political. If you're interested, call the NAACP to request a ride.
Winds today could be gusting up to 50 miles an hour and even above 50 miles an hour in some locations. It's going to be associated with these showers and storms that we're watching for later this afternoon. I'll have a full track of these storms coming up.
That is a live look over downtown Columbia at 4:37. Stick around. KOMU 8 News Today. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. The National Weather Service has issued a red flag warning for several parts of Kansas. Strong winds and dry conditions are creating an environment prone to fires. Among those placed on high alert is Sedgwick County. Lieutenant Cameron Meyer of the fire district there with Station 34 says the district will staff extra vehicles over the next few days.
With the fire danger being higher, stuff gets out of control so fast. So even though our response times are faster, even though we do staff those trucks, by the time we get there, it's so hard to put those out.
First responders are urging people to take precautionary steps such as removing flammable materials from homes during these next few days. All right, Kesley, thanks so much. Cardinal Health has announced it will be closing its Moberly facility. In response to the closing, Cardinal Health has released this official statement. It reads, quote, "We continuously adapt our business to meet the current and future needs of the industry. As a result of our evolving product strategy, we made the decision to close this facility," end quote. The first phase of the closure will take place May 31st, and the second phase will start on June 30th. Recent campaign finance reports show Columbia School Board candidate Chuck Basie has a significant fundraising lead just days ahead of Tuesday's election. Basie's report shows he has raised a total of nearly $30,000 in campaign funds during this election cycle. James Gordon was next with more than $14,000 in contributions, and April Farrell was third with a little over $6,000. Those three candidates, along with Paul Harper, John Potter, John Lyman, and incumbent Chris Horn, are running to fill 3 seats on the board, each an unpaid 3-year term. They were required to file a campaign finance report to the Missouri Ethics Commission by Monday. The Daniel Boone Regional Library System could see cuts in programming, online services, and books if the proposed defunding of public libraries in the state is ultimately passed by the legislature. This is according to our news partners at the Columbia Missourian. Last year, the library system received almost $130,000 in state funding. This accounted for 1% of its revenue. The Missouri House voted on Tuesday to cut all state funding for public libraries, which amounts to $4.5 billion in the proposed state budget. The budget bill has yet to be approved by the Senate. Here's what's happening right now. More than 60 members of a Chinese Christian church have been detained in Thailand. This has raised fears they may be returned to their home country where they face possible persecution. Members of the Shenzhen Holy Reformed Church went to Thailand seeking asylum in 2022. The current status of their request was not immediately clear. American journalist Evan Gershkovich was arrested in Russia yesterday on suspicion of spying. The Wall Street Journal reporter was detained 800 miles outside of Moscow. The Kremlin claims that Gershkovich tried to obtain state secrets about a Russian military-industrial complex. The White House has condemned his detention.
These espionage charges are ridiculous. The targeting of American citizens by Russian government is unacceptable. We condemn the detention of Mr. Gershkovich.
Gershkovich is the first American journalist arrested on spying charges in Russia since the Cold War. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz provided updates on the recent train derailment in Raymond. The derailment happened just after 1 a.m. and emergency response crews from 15 different cities and towns and counties worked to evacuate 800 people in the town of Raymond, who wound up taking shelter at a nearby church in Princeburg. That's about 5 miles down the road. Now, Walz met with residents and offered the state's full support, saying that the main goal is to get people back to their homes as quickly as possible.
At this time, there are no reported injuries, and as I said, due to the manifest and the information as it stands, no toxic exposures, and I think on a timeline you'll hear from Burlington Northern, a relatively tight timeline. We can get you back in your homes, get this thing cleared up, and get with business as usual.
When the NTSB wraps its investigation, the train company says it will get to work picking up the cars while putting out small fires as they happen. Floridians will be able to carry concealed guns without a permit under a bill on its way to the governor's desks. It passed its final hurdle yesterday with a state Senate vote of 27-13. The way Florida law stands now, to buy a gun from a licensed dealer, the buyer has to go through a background check, a 3-day waiting period, and there are certain age requirements depending on the type of weapon. That will not change. What is changing is the license and training that's now required to carry that gun with you. Those that support this bill say it's a matter of following the Second Amendment, which gives citizens the right to carry a weapon. Those that are opposed express concerns about having more guns on the streets.
I was saddened to see that children once again were gunned down in their schools. We've got to do more, obviously, to protect our children in school, but we have to do a lot more to ensure that whoever's going to carry a gun is going to be not a person like the woman who gunned down these children, she had super mental health problems.
All amendments passed by Democrats yesterday were voted down by the Republican majority, including having background checks for private sales of guns, stiffer penalties for not storing weapons safely, and allowing children to have access. 9 U.S. service members are dead after a helicopter crashed during a training mission near the Tennessee-Kentucky border. The crews were part of the 101st Airborne Division out of Fort Campbell. 3 Black Hawk helicopters were involved in the fatal accident. The Army has deployed an aircraft safety team from Fort Rucker, Alabama, to lead in the investigation. Schools in New York State were subjected to numerous hoax phone calls yesterday. Multiple law enforcement agencies say they had multiple calls about active shooters, but no confirmed incidents. The hoax is known as swatting. Several schools in that region were on lockdown or lockout. Authorities still handled the calls as if they were real, though, investigating each one individually. The incident comes just days after that deadly school shooting in Nashville that left 6 people dead, including 3 children. Virgin Orbit CEO Dan Hart told employees that the company is ceasing operations for the foreseeable future. The move comes after the company failed to secure a funding lifeline, and now it plans to lay off nearly all of its workforce. The company will eliminate all but 100 positions, amounting to about 90% of the workforce. CEO Dan Hart says Virgin Orbit will provide a severance package for every departing employee. The severance is expected to include a cash payment, extension of benefits, and support in finding a new position. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and his top lieutenants are actively preparing to move a bill to raise the national debt limit if President Biden continues to refuse to negotiate. The party-line bill would avoid the nation's first ever default, but it's risky. Republicans can only afford to lose 4 votes on any partisan plan, and thorny fiscal issues have long divided their party. If it does clear the House, the party-line bill would be difficult to pass in the Democratic-led Senate, where 60 votes would be needed to advance it. Republicans say their first choice is to negotiate a deal with the president.